Hello and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable things before breakfast, and that consists of 6 thoughts about writing, reading, or science fiction. So it's very early in the morning here. I woke up early and decided to try to get some things done, but I may go back to bed for a little bit after I finish recording this because it's harder and harder to get a nap during the day with my kids around, and I feel like I definitely need a little bit more sleep. But we'll see about that. For now, I'm here and I'm ready to get started. So number 1, I shared last week that I was trying to decide whether I would take a break on my writing or not after Nano. And I guess I have my answer because I have not written since then. So I technically have taken a break, but honestly, what's interesting is I don't feel like I've had a week off, not in a bad way. I just don't feel like, I don't know, I guess maybe it's just been such a busy week. I don't really feel the span of time. Like, I guess what I'm saying is I feel like I could pick it up today or tomorrow and still have the momentum on my story. Now, I'm sure that won't be the case forever, but it's kind of nice knowing that, I could take a week off and not necessarily have such a hard time getting back into it. So I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do, but it's been nice, mainly because, as I said a little bit earlier, when I get up, if I want to go back to sleep for a little bit, I can. I don't have to worry so much about getting my writing in. But on the other hand, it wasn't too difficult to stay up and write either. So I don't know. Still trying just to figure out the rhythm of how writing fits best into this whole motherhood thing. So number 2, coming off of that, I'm thinking that I may write some this month. I may not set really a hard goal until January because this month is just very busy. And, it usually is that way in December, but I think even more now having kids, and we're much more plugged into our church. So there are just so many things going on. There's a lot of Christmas things we want to do with our girls. We want to take them to see Christmas lights. We want to take them to the little local Santa's Village, activities. And then our church is doing a Christmas pageant that I helped to write. And me and my 2 older girls are supposed to be angels in the heavenly host. So there's just a lot going on. We've got rehearsals for that. And then I've just got normal life and Christmas activities with family. So I'm thinking this might be a good time to not be setting really hard and fast goals. But I don't want to not write at all this month. So I'm thinking maybe even if I just say, set a very small daily word count, or I don't know. I'll have to figure out what that looks like. But I definitely, when it comes to January, I do want to set another hard and fast goal. Whether that'll be working on shows or working on the next firmament book, finishing that up for a second time, I'm not sure, but looking forward to that. So number 3, one of the things that we did the other day, we took the girls to a local outdoor mall to just see the Christmas tree there and just do a little shopping, have some fun family time out. And we took them to a bookstore, and it's just so much fun taking them there. I had taken my oldest, Violet, there a few times, but I don't think I had taken April to a bookstore, at least not that she could really remember. So she just turned 2, and she was just so enamored when I took her back to the kids' book section. Like, she just plopped herself down on the floor and started just getting books off the shelf and reading them. And then I would direct her, like, okay, you have to put it back where you found it. And we don't own these books, so be careful with them. And so she would just put the book back and grab another book and sit down and read it. And then my oldest, meanwhile, is walking around pointing at everything, saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. And I just love how much they love books. Like, they can't read yet, obviously, but they just love books. They love looking at books. They love reading time with me and their dad. They both just read books every day, or look at books, and they just love them. And I love that so much. I'm so happy that is already such an interest for them, and I'm so excited to, when they can have more comprehension, to start reading aloud longer books, children's classics, and some of my old favorites to them. I've been collecting books to read to them for a while now, just some classic children's books like A Little Princess or Anne of Green Gables, obviously the Chronicles of Narnia, things like that, and then other things that me and my siblings enjoyed when we were little, like the Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle books, Encyclopedia Brown, just so many favorites. I'm just so excited. I used to read aloud to my siblings at lunchtime, and I've always been excited to move into that with my girls when they get a little bit older. So just love how much they love books, and just had to give a little mention to that. But it was just so cute watching my April just sit down on the floor of the bookstore and start reading. And just on the topic of books again, number 4. So I'll real quick say it's looking like we're going to be moving soon into an actual house, which is super exciting. We've been in an apartment for our whole marriage so far, and we've been really blessed in the apartments that we've had, and we do love our apartment, but it's small. Our family is growing, and we just have needed more space, need a yard for the girls to run around, that kind of thing. So we'll be moving into a house, but it's just got me thinking. We are working on through the process of buying a house right now, and we're super grateful for this house. I think it'll work really well for us. Has a really nice yard, a nice big room for the girls, etc. But it's definitely not, our dream home or anything, which is totally fine. We're very grateful, and I think it'll work great for us, as I said. But it's just got me thinking about, my ultimate house dreams. And of course, one thing I absolutely feel like I must have one day, a huge dream of mine, is to have an actual library in a house one day. So I don't know what that will look like. Maybe we won't have that kind of extra space until the kids are grown and gone. But although with how my girls love books, maybe they would also have that dream and be willing to give up a little space in favor of a whole room dedicated to books. But it's just, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I love the meme that goes around about Beauty and the Beast, where it says something like, most girls watch Beauty and the Beast and want the prince, but I wanted the library. And that library might be a little bit much, but I do just dream of a book that's, a room that's completely dedicated to books, like just shelves all around, some comfortable chairs, books everywhere. Like it would just, I feel like it would make me so happy. So I dream of that one day. And my husband does also really love books, more when he was younger, but it's still something we share, and he fully supports this dream. So someday that is something that we aspire to, but probably not this time around. But we'll definitely still have plenty of books everywhere in the house, just not in entire room to themselves. Number 5, continuing along the book train of thought, I haven't finished Atlas Shrugged yet because I ended up having a couple other books I had to read quickly. One of them I'm still reading, but I finished reading Dune, which I've meant to read for a while, and it was on my to read list this year before I even realized the movie was coming out, which is interesting. I'm just trying to read more classic science fiction. As a science fiction writer, I thought that would be smart. I haven't read much of it. I've read I, Robot, I've read Ender's Game, and there might be some more, but off the top of my head, there's not a lot of like really classic works of science fiction that I've read. So trying to change that. So I read Dune. I ended up having to read it in 4 days because I got it from the library a while back and just didn't realize how much time had passed. And then I tried to renew it, and of course you can't because everybody and their cousin wants to read it right now. So I decided to just go for it. And so I read it in 4 days. I have to say, honestly, it's just not my favorite. I just don't enjoy that type of story very much. It felt more to me, honestly, like fantasy than science fiction, even though technically, they have the different planets and the, interplanetary empire or whatever it is. I didn't fully understand all the politics and stuff and world building in the book, and they have all this, technology and things like that kind of thing is all throughout the book for sure. But just the style of story, like it's very, kings and dukes and emperors and all these fantastical places and this kind of like weird mystical religious stuff and, conspiracies, for the ascension of the throne and just stuff like that. It felt more like a Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. Like, I don't know. That's the kind of vibe it had. Lots of, and then also it seemed I kind of, it's just not my cup of tea where it's like every single interaction in the book is like a game of chess. Like it was just a bit much for my taste personally. But I am glad I read it, and I do have an appreciation. The writing style I did think was very skilled. It's hard for me to follow a lot of these kinds of things I've mentioned before that are more action driven, because it's just hard for me to follow what's going on sometimes. Um, so some of that, I'm still a little bit confused about. And world building is just not something I'm very I have a huge appreciation for it, but it's just not something I enjoy very much, whether on the writing or the reading end. Like having this rich, complex world with all these, invented languages and places and religions. Like I know so many people that absolutely love that, and that's great, and I think it's amazing. But it's just not really my cup of tea. Like it's just kind of confusing to me. Like I just want to read about the relationships and the emotions and interesting plot mysteries and plot twists and things like that, like if that makes sense. So all that to say, really glad I read it. I wanted to read it before seeing the movie, which my husband wants to see sometime. And I do think that he would enjoy it more than I did. So I may recommend that he read it. And that kind of leads me into number 6, actually, which as I was reading this and thinking about it and how obviously it's super popular and famous and tons of people love it because it's, a classic. um, but it just, so I almost can tend to feel while I'm reading it like, well, my opinion about it is wrong, but that's not true. I mean, I can't be wrong about not enjoying it, either I enjoy it or I don't. And it was kind of good to be reminded that that's fine. I mean, everyone does have different opinions and tastes, and we all have different experiences we draw from and that we bring to our entertainment. And that's there's nothing wrong with that. It's helpful for me as a writer to remember that when I know that there's plenty of people out there that don't like my books. um, and just to be reminded that's totally fine. Like everyone has different tastes. I hate romance novels. Like I just cannot stand them. There's a few that I've enjoyed, and like Angela Castillo's Christian historical romance, I've been able to do some of her audiobooks, and I found myself actually enjoying those. And I think just they're a little bit more authentic, and the people are a little more real than most of the genre. But for the most part, like romance novels, I just can't stand them. They just drive me crazy. But it's obviously a huge industry with a massive following, so there's a market for it. And obviously Dune and that kind of like deep world building type epic drama, story has a huge following and a huge audience. And so, it's fine for me to not enjoy those things. It's fine for others to enjoy them. And it's just freeing as a writer to know that you're not going to please everyone. And there is, an audience that loves one thing is not going to love another. And it's just, I can tend to fall into that trap of it's easy to just take a hit to your, ego when you get a bad review, or somebody, even a friend or family member that's kind of like, about your writing. It's easy to be offended or feel like, oh, I didn't do a good enough job. And of course it's good to take feedback from people, and that's valuable, but there is a certain point to which some people just are not going to enjoy certain stories. And just remembering that I am writing for a different audience, not for those people. I'm writing for the people that enjoy this type of story. And there's still obviously, even, from either camp, from the people that enjoy this type of story more or less, like you can still get helpful feedback from them. And you don't want to be like, no, this is my story. Like I'm not listening to anybody. So it is good to learn and have humility in it, but it's also good to know who you're writing for and keep that in mind and not be so discouraged by the people that, even if your story and your work was the absolute perfect specimen